Well, I'm Glen Gonzales. I'm been in the industry about 25 years and started off as a maintenance man and worked my way up, and I'm now the president of PPA Real Estate Management, and was pretty heavily involved with the apartment association because Carrie Anderson asked me to. At the time I worked for Equity Residential, and her boss Bruce Levine asked that we would get a little more involved in the industry, and that would we help set up and get the association going here in Washington. And I guess by assignment we all were asked to do that, and it kind of grew and evolved from there. We talked a lot about what it was going to take to get it off the ground and moving, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but we did it. And as we started going, we realized we're going to need some help to do this. So my wife, Heidi Gonzales, was the very first executive, what do they call it? The executive director of the apartment association, and it started off in our garage, and those were the beginning days. So, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think we all had the vision that it would grow, and we knew that with our networking ability and the personalities that all existed on the association, we kind of knew that it would grow. We saw the vision. It was interesting though, because we talked about where we wanted to be, and it was a reality check of where we were. But we knew we wanted 100,000 units in the association, and at the time we had 0. So the vision was always there, and it just took a lot of work. The interesting part about it is the friendships that were developed along the way. Here's a group of people that all worked with different companies at different times, different stages in their lives, all pulled together to volunteer their time to make sure that the association would succeed. And as a result of that, a lot of friendships were developed, lifelong friendships. And I'll always treasure that. I've worked with some fantastic people, and you get to know their character, you get to know who they are, and you get to know their families. And it was kind of neat. Well, it smelled like gasoline. There was a lawnmower there. We had to put a desk out in the garage. We're like, it looks like a garage, so I think we put a little area rug out there and a little plant. It still smelled like gasoline, and that was the first move office. But as we started getting more and more participation, we had students that were starting to take the NALP classes and the CAM courses. We quickly realized that this wasn't going to cut it anymore, and we had some membership fees, we had some educational fees that we were receiving, so it was a big decision. We're like, I think we need office space. And I remember it was maybe 1,000 square feet with 1, maybe 2 offices, and it was not very big, but it was a big decision for us, given that we had only gotten 10,000 units or something, and we're like, how are we going to pay for it? But it was a big commitment. But we did it, and it felt right, and it looked good, and we pulled some resources from our maintenance guys with our different companies that would help get the space ready for move-in, so we didn't have to pay high rent. And that was the beginning, and we realized we can do this. And it went from there. And then we got help along the way. We realized that Heidi couldn't do everything. She couldn't do the bookkeeping, she couldn't do the membership, she couldn't do the educational classes, and then do all. So at one point we realized we need help. So we searched and found a gal named Darla that helped that helped Heidi specifically, and her main focus was just to work on the educational portion of the association, where Heidi still planned the events, did the books. She didn't really do the books, but somebody else was doing the books, the secretary, and I don't remember who the first secretary was, but it was fun.
Heidi Gonzales, married to Glen Gonzales. We moved here in 2003. He was brought up here by Equity. He was working with Equity Residential and Carrie Anderson and her team. And I had been in the industry in Utah for a number of years. And so I had some experience in the industry, and they had this vision of what they wanted. And since we had just moved here, I wasn't working, and so I got involved by default, I guess, so to speak. And I remember talking to a few people. They actually did an interview with me, and I interviewed with all of the board members. There was probably 8 or 10 of them or something at the time. And I think we went to lunch or something, but I remember sitting around a table and being drilled with questions from 10 different people. And I do remember a particular question, or a comment, I should say. John Gibson, he was always the devil's advocate. He sat down and he looked at me and he said, "Do you really think you can do this job? You have to be tough, and you just don't seem tough. You're just too sweet." So I wasn't sure if that was a compliment at the time or not, but I just remember it was pretty intimidating, but I remember being very excited about the vision and being a part of it.
Interviewed me for a job. I was living in Salt Lake City and flew out here. We stayed at the Doubletree in Tukwila. I met her and her team, and she's very particular who she wants on her team, and she had me meet with all of her other regional managers, and so they all got to put in their 2 cents. But that's when I first met Carrie. It was in a job interview. I ended up joining Equity Residential with Carrie and Greg Sorbana and Joe Stanley and Lana, and we were like family after that, and grew and worked hard, rubbed shoulders. So when it came time to volunteer, to donate time for a good cause, I was one of the first ones to say, yeah, let's do it. And Carrie was very encouraging, of course. I don't think I had a choice. Now that I think about it. Yeah, I think my bonus was dependent upon whether I joined the association and volunteered my time. I'm just kidding, she wasn't like that, but it was a lot of fun. No, I don't think that thought ever crossed my mind, that we would actually influence people, or, I know for me, I had a couple of mentors that meant a lot. One was, Carrie Anderson, of course, because she's the one that helped recruit me, and I looked up to her. Another was a gentleman named John Gibson, and I remember John Gibson. He sat across the table from us, and he was kind of the voice that would say, hey, we need to think this through. We would all have what we thought was a great idea, and he would pose one question, and we'd all say, oh, didn't think about that. That was John Gibson. And he also became a mentor to me. I remember approaching him one time and told him I was looking at buying an apartment complex in Tacoma. And I asked him if he would review my numbers, because he was successful. He had multiple apartment complexes. And he looked at my numbers and he said, you know what, I have a deal that you might be interested in. And I said, well, tell me about it. And he told me a little bit about it, and it was a deal that he was going to sell me. And he required some money that needed to be put in. And I actually went to Carrie Anderson and another vendor in the industry, and we, put up a little bit of money, and successfully pulled that thing off and sold it, and were successful at it. But it started because I was volunteering my time, sitting around a board table across from another gentleman that I didn't really know, and John kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and I appreciate that. I think that's one thing I've come to realize, is that this industry is filled with a lot of people like that. So I did have mentors that mentored me, and I never really thought about myself as being a mentor. But I look back on my career, and it's been 25 years, and I started off as a maintenance guy, fixing toilets and stoves and painting apartments and stuff, and then got into management, and then became a regional manager. One company became the director of operations, whereas today I sit as the president of PPA Real Estate Management, and we own and operate a lot of our own apartments. So I look back, and they were all stepping stones. And I guess I'll forever be grateful for the Apartment Association, this industry, the multifamily industry, because it's fed my family. It's been tough. It's very demanding. But I would always give back to an industry that's given so much to my family and I. And if I could be a mentor somewhere along the way, and somebody asked me to be a mentor, I'd say of course, because I've had great mentors in my life. the events where you get to just go and rub shoulders with your friends and the vendors and other managers. Those events were always fantastic. As a board, we would try once a year to set some goals and objectives for what we wanted to accomplish. Educational growth, and there were committee members, and we would all do some team building event. And I remember there was this one particular event that we were out at the Lake Wilderness, and we were having a canoe race, and it was the I remember this. I was there. I remember that as we were coming back in, Greg Sorbana started paddling closer and closer to the shore, and he saw this fish swim away, and he stood up in this canoe, dove right into the lake, and started chasing this fish. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "We're Hawaiians. We love fish." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. I mean, Greg, get back in the boat." He's swimming all around chasing this fish, and we're all just watching it. Like, "What are you doing?" And then he finally realized everybody's staring at me. So he's like, "Hey, Glenn, do you have a change of clothes I could borrow?" The guy borrowed some clothes from me. I helped him, give him a towel and some change of clothes. But I'll never forget Greg Sorbana chasing that fish, diving out of that canoe straight into the lake. And it was only about 2 feet deep, and he thought he was going to drown. It was really funny. So don't let anybody tell you anything different. I was there. You remember that, Heidi?
Yes.
I would have to say, don't ever be complacent. When we realized that we had very few units and we wanted to hit, I remember we were setting goals, we need to hit 100,000 units, to get this where we need to be. I would say that you should take what you have, wherever you are today, and set a goal on where you want to be. This market, the Washington area, is such a vast, big state with lots of apartments. I would say set some goals. Be the best you can be at your NALP classes, your CAM, your CAMT. I mean, let's use all of those things. Get the best instructors and grow the organization. Set some goals. And who knows? Who knows where you'll be? But if you think about what you said earlier about how perhaps I've influenced you in some small way, the more people you get involved, if some of the new people coming into our industry can have mentors, and now they can have lots and lots of mentors, let's grow that. Let's set the vision, and let's move to the next level, and don't ever be complacent. That would be my advice. And people will look back at you and say, "I remember when you were only at 100,000 units, and now we have 200 or 250. I'd set the goal, and I'd move forward with the vision. Create your own vision. It's fed my family for years. I remember going to college, and when I graduated college, I was supposed to be a hospital administrator. And I realized that at the time I had been managing apartments, and I think I made a conscientious decision that I would make this my career to raise my kids and my family, and that's what would provide. So I decided to get my real estate license, my broker's license. I got my CPM designation. I got heavily involved with the association, and I realized that if I stick to this, I could be successful at this. And it took a lot of work, a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And there were a couple times where I hit bottom, and I realized, what have I done? And people ask me, did you choose this career on purpose? I have to say, no, I didn't. It kind of chose me. So it's been good. Thank you to all the people that have worked tirelessly for the association, for all the original board members that just sat around the table and said we could do this, for inspiring me, putting some trust in me when they asked if I would be a president during one of the years. I had one term. I feel sorry for Jay Olson and Carrie, who have served multiple terms as president, because it's a little nerve-wracking. But thank you. Thank you to everybody that has made this a wonderful experience for me.